Welcome back. So, in today's lesson, we're going to continue our conversation about inverse functions, with the focus being actually determining is it truly a function or not. That's our big idea for today. Our big focus for today is determining are these things functions or are they not functions when we find the inverse. Now, you know several things that are functions. You know lines are functions. You know parabolas are functions. You know that square roots are functions. However, there are some things that are not functions. Now, if you can't tell, if it's not one of these basic things, then what I want you to do is picture the graph of the inverse. So remember, graphically, the inverse is a reflection over the y equals x line of the original function. So what that means is that you can picture taking the graph, tilting it on its side, and thinking if that passes the vertical line test or not. So let's take a look. So to find the inverse, remember you switch the x and the y, and now you start solving for y. So I add 1 and I divide by 3. All right, now you should be able to tell this is a line. This is a linear function. So the answer is yes. It is a function. The inverse is a true function. Okay, and again, you should know this because you know that it is an equation of a line. Let's take this one. Switch x and y. Square both sides to get rid of the square root. And now I'm going to subtract the 3. So here is my inverse. Now I want you to picture that. You should know that is a quadratic. Okay, you should know that this is a parabola. Okay, any squared polynomial is a parabola. You should know parabolas are functions. So yes, this inverse, yet again, is a function. Let's see what happens with this last case. So I switch my x and my y. Now I add the 1 over. And I'm going to square root both sides. Remember, when you square a root, you end up with a plus or minus. So that's what we get. Okay, and again, you should know that much from our previous video. Now, that doesn't look quite familiar. I mean, you know it's a square root, but you may find it a little bit weird that there's that plus or minus there. Okay, well, what I want you to consider, since you don't quite know what that looks like, what you can do is picture the original function. The original function is a parabola. And then picture taking that and tilting it on its side, toppling it over. Well, and toppling it over, you may notice now you have something that fails the vertical line test. It touches in more than one place, and again, that means it fails. So this time, because of that plus or minus that you're getting, you get that it is not a function. Okay, so that's our strategy that I mean by picturing the original function and picture just tilting it on its side. Because sometimes it's difficult to see, excuse me, see what the inverse function is if you're not familiar with that type of graph. So you can picture the original, flip it on its side, and see if it passes the vertical line test. All right, so again, mainly review from previous notes with the added piece of determining if it's a function or not. So make sure you have all of this written down, and then make sure that you come and ask me if you have any questions.